Max Lugavere, can you tell us a little bit about your background and where you spend your time?
Yeah, so my background is as a filmmaker and journalist. I was pre-med in college and I ended up double majoring in film and psychology. And I made a film as an undergraduate exploring my passions at the time. But my passions really have always been health, nutrition, fitness. When I left Current TV to explore where I wanted to go with my career, it was around that time that my mother started to display early signs of memory loss. And I didn't really know what I was seeing at the time. I had no prior family history of dementia or any kind of neurodegenerative disease. And certainly my mom was not old at the time. She was 58. She was a vibrant, spirited blonde from New York, you know? Seeing and hearing my mom complain about brain fog and, problems with her memory caught me and my family completely off guard. But it was at the Cleveland Clinic in Ohio where my mom, for the first time, was diagnosed with a neurodegenerative disease. And that's when she was prescribed, the chemical Band-Aids that they often prescribe people with neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's. And I knew where to find good quality research. And that was the first place, those websites, PubMed. My theory was that because my mom was young and because I had no prior family history of dementia, there had to be something environmental triggering my mom's illness. And I thought that to some degree, diet was probably implicated. And I began looking into diet and Alzheimer's disease. My mom hadn't been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, but Alzheimer's disease is the most common form of dementia.
So, as a journalist, as someone who is a professional communicator and the kind of training that you also had access probably to a lot of other people that the average individual who's looking up PubMed and is passionate about the subject, you had access in different ways.
Between doing all of my own research and having conversations with these researchers and then broadening out to clinicians who are the point of care providers that are actually translating what is discovered in science, I became an expert, in my own right,
If this was a diagnosis that had no family history, how does it relate to you and your own health?
I became interested in learning about the foods that actually do improve health. And I realized that 9% of Americans consume the required amount of vegetables per day, according to the CDC. And I was very likely in that category. The truth is vegetables are among the most nutrient-dense kinds of food there are. You take kale or spinach. Take spinach, for example. Spinach, it's one of the top sources, if not the top source, of magnesium in the diet, which is an incredibly important nutrient, which is required for hundreds of enzymatic processes in the body. It's a top source of dietary folate. It's an incredible source of fiber. These are the kinds of things that we need that actually improve health, right?
Lutein, it's incredible for lutein, and we need as much lutein as possible for cognitive health, as well as the impact from blue light.
Exactly.
You're right. I mean, spinach is like a rock star.
Yeah.
But you'd have to eat almost 2 cups of spinach every day to get the kind of lutein that we need.
Well, but spinach is not the only source. I mean,
That's
you can eat spinach, you can eat kale, you can eat, eggs.
Yes.
Egg yolks are an incredible source of lutein and zeaxanthin, which boost eye health. It boosts, these are carotenoids that boost brain health. Not grains. Grains are mostly starch, okay? So mostly just chains of glucose, which is sugar, and a little bit of insoluble fiber, which basically acts like sort of sandpaper to your insides, and a tiny, tiny amount of vitamins. So why do we need that? There's no mechanism by which we need grains. I mean, certainly enjoy grains if you want. They're not toxic, but the notion that we need to eat them for health is just absurd. So spinach, kale, nuts, like the healthy fats found in nuts, extra virgin olive oil, incredibly healthy. I'm a big believer in eating, a moderate amount of grass-fed beef, which I think is a health food. Grass-fed beef is, packed with, again, carotenoids, lutein, zeaxanthin, which is found in the fat. Because cows that eat grass, which are packed with carotenoids, then those carotenoids embed themselves in their meat. So when you eat, grass-fed beef, you're getting these brain and eye health boosting carotenoids. You're getting, a biologically appropriate ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 fatty acids. And, researchers speculate that it's access to meat and in fact cooked meat that catalyze the growth of our brains because it's such a nutrient and energy dense food. And so, I eat a couple servings of grass-fed beef per week. Fatty fish is incredibly important, obviously. Fatty fish is, packed with DHA, which actually helps build your brain cells. This is really important because, for a long time it was thought that adult neurogenesis was impossible, that, our brains sort of reached their sort of maximum size and power in our mid-20s, only to begin sort of a long gradual decline until the end of life. But now we know that adults can grow new brain cells, particularly in the vulnerable memory center of the brain, the hippocampus, up until the point at which we die. So the fact that we're able to continue growing brain cells means that we need to supply our brains with the appropriate building blocks to do so. Grains don't boost health, and especially if you're one of the 50% of the US population that's either diabetic or pre-diabetic, and you've essentially become glucose intolerant. Adding grains into that equation is a recipe for disaster.
So even for you, when you transformed your own health and you started to eat these, these fatty foods, these fish, the grass-fed meats, and tons of vegetables, what happened to your energy? How did your experience of the day, even, let's just take the day, change?
Once I started adopting this higher fat, low carb, high vegetable diet, I definitely noticed that my own focus and my own attention and my own ability to convey ideas improved. I'm a professional communicator, so for a living, I go on TV and I communicate these relatively heady ideas in a way that people can understand them. So I'm very attuned to whether or not I'm on or I'm off. And I noticed that once I adopted this diet, I was much more frequently on and way more infrequently off.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights and guidance and curiosity into areas of our health and well-being that we can all benefit from.
Thank you so much for having me.